The room was quiet. Only the sound of a human man setting down his plate echoed softly. He had worked all day and was tired. Now he finally sat to eat. In his hand he held a simple fork. Shiny under the dim light, for him, it was nothing more than a tool for eating. Something common, something harmless. But in the corner of the room, hidden in the shadows, an alien girl watched with wide eyes. Her body was thin, her clothes torn, and her skin had strange faint marks from old wounds. She had followed the scent of food like a starving animal, too afraid to ask, too weak to walk away. Her breath came quick and sharp, because what she saw in his hand made her heart freeze. The fork to her was no tool. It looked like a weapon, a sharp blade used to cut and hurt. Her people had seen such shapes before, but in the hands of soldiers, not kind men. The soldiers of her world had twisted harmless things into cruel tools, and every time she saw something with sharp edges, her body remembered the pain. She pressed her back against the wall, shaking. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Filled with fear, she whispered to herself in her own language, begging not to be hurt again. Her thin fingers clutched at her chest as if to protect herself from an invisible strike. The human did not notice her at first. He picked up his fork, pierced a piece of bread, and brought it to his mouth. He chewed slowly, sighing with the comfort of food after long work. For him it was normal, but for her, each movement looked like a threat, the fork going up, the fork coming down. It looked like training, like a weapon in use. Then the floor creaked under her trembling feet. The man froze. He looked to the corner and saw her, a girl with silver eyes shaking and small. His hand lowered, fork still in it, his brows pulled together in surprise. She gasped when his gaze met hers. Her knees weakened. She thought he had caught her spying, and now he would use that blade against her. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Please, don't cut me, please." The man tilted his head, confused. He raised the fork slowly, not in anger, but just to show her it was nothing. Yet the girl let out a cry, covering her face with her arms. Her whole body shivered like a leaf in the wind. For a long moment, the room was filled only with her broken breaths. The human slowly placed the fork back on the table and lifted both his empty hands. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. His voice was calm, steady, carrying no threat. But the girl could not believe her past was too heavy. Every scar on her arm screamed the same warning. Every memory told her sharp things always mean pain. Her feet wanted to run, but hunger chained her to the spot. The smell of bread was too strong. The warmth of food too close, her stomach growled. Loud and desperate, the man heard it. He looked at her with sympathy. He pushed the plate slightly forward on the table, the steam of food rising gently, but the fork still lay beside it, gleaming in the light. And her eyes never left it. Her heart pounded. She remembered her people. She remembered the cold nights when soldiers forced them to kneel. Forks, knives, blades, it did not matter. All were the same in cruel hands. The smallest tool became a punishment. She still had lines of scars drawn across her arms like stories of pain. Now here she was, staring at another fork in another world, and she could not tell if this man was different. The man noticed her staring. He slowly took the fork again, but instead of pointing it, he stabbed a piece of potato and placed it gently in his mouth, chewing calmly. His eyes never left hers. He wanted her to see that it was only for food, only for eating, but she only shook harder. Her lips trembled, her body whispered danger, but her stomach whispered hunger. The two voices fought inside her. The room grew heavier, silence turned into suspense. The fork lay again on the plate, untouched, while both of them stared. He looked at her with patience. She looked at him with fear. The girl did not know yet. But this moment was the beginning. The simple fork she feared like a blade would change her life forever. The alien girl stood frozen in the corner, her chest rising and falling too quickly. Her silver eyes glowed faintly with fear, every muscle in her body tight like a bowstring. She had never been this close to a human before, never this close to food that smelled so warm. Yet her mind kept whispering danger, danger, danger. The human man sat still, his fork resting quietly on the table. He kept his palms open, showing her he carried nothing. His voice was steady as he said, "You're safe here. I won't hurt you." But the words sounded strange to her ears. They were soft. But soft words had been used before by soldiers who promised safety and gave pain. She shook her head, stepping back into the shadow. "That blade," she whispered, her voice weak. "Don't use it on me." She pointed a trembling finger at the fork as if naming her enemy. Her eyes filled with water, her breath uneven. The man followed her gaze. He looked at the fork, then back at her, and realization began to form. It was not the food that kept her away, it was the fork itself. She thought it was a weapon. His brow furrowed. He had never thought of a fork like that, so common for humans, but for her, it was something else. He picked it up slowly. Careful not to move too fast, he stabbed another piece of potato and ate it calmly. Chewing with care, his eyes stayed gentle, as if saying, "Look, it is harmless," but the girl flinched as if the bite itself was violence. She covered her face, whispering, "Please, no more." "I'll be good." The man's heart sank. Those words were not new words. They were words of someone who had lived in chains. He had seen animals treated kinder than this girl seemed to have been. He set the fork down once more, sliding it far away from the plate. The sound of metal against wood made her flinch again. "Listen," he said, his voice softer now. "This is not a blade, it will not cut you. Not here." He touched his own chest with his hand, showing sincerity, but the girl only shook her head harder. "You lie, they always lie," she whispered. Her knees bent as if she was ready to fall to the ground and beg. The human leaned back, his eyes full of pity. He could see she was too broken to believe, he thought quickly. What could prove to her that he spoke the truth? His eyes went to the plate, to the bread. He picked up a piece with his bare hand. Holding it forward slowly, the girl's eyes followed it. Hunger burned in her gaze. Her lips parted slightly, but then her eyes darted back to the fork lying on the table. She shook her head. "You'll trick me. When I get close, you'll strike," the man sighed. He understood now. To her, the fork was not a tool. It was a trap. He gently pushed the fork farther away, sliding it to the very edge of the table, almost dropping it to the floor. "See," he said, "no fork, only food." Her body trembled. She stared at the bread in his hand. Her stomach growled so loudly that it echoed in the quiet room. Tears filled her eyes from shame. Hunger was stronger than pride. But fear was stronger than hunger. She took a step forward, then quickly stopped. Shaking her head, the human did not move closer. He stayed seated, still as stone. Only his hand stretched forward with the bread, his eyes never left hers. Calm and patient. He was not forcing, he was not commanding. He was simply offering slowly, carefully. She stepped forward. Each step was a battle between fear and need. Her thin feet made almost no sound on the wooden floor. Her hands were clenched against her chest as if ready to shield herself. Her breath shook with every step. At last she stood only a few feet away. Her eyes flicked again to the table. Making sure the fork stayed far, she reached her hand out, shaking like a leaf in wind, and touched the bread. Her fingers brushed his hand for a second, and she snatched the bread quickly away as if expecting pain. But no pain came. The man did not grab her, did not strike. He simply smiled gently and pulled his hand back. Letting her take the bread, she lifted it to her mouth slowly. Her lips touched it, then her teeth. She took the smallest bite, and her eyes widened. It was warm, soft, nothing like the cold scraps she was used to. Her body almost collapsed with relief. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she ate. The human watched in silence, his chest tight with emotion. He had seen hungry animals eat before, but this was different. This was not just hunger of the body. It was hunger of trust, hunger of hope. She was tasting safety for the first time. But even as she ate, her eyes never left the fork. Every bite was followed by a glance of fear. She expected the trap to spring. She expected the blade to turn against her, the man noticed. He reached across the table and slowly pushed the fork off the edge. It clattered softly to the floor. The alien girl gasped, stepping back quickly. But then she saw it lay still, no attack, no danger. Her shoulders dropped a little, she still trembled, but less. The misunderstanding was not gone, but a crack of light had entered, for the first time. She thought maybe, just maybe, this human was not like the others. And for the first time the man thought maybe, just maybe, he could earn her trust. The bread was almost gone, crumbs clinging to the alien girl's trembling fingers. She had eaten quickly, her hunger stronger than her fear. Yet even as she chewed, her silver eyes never left the table where the fork had fallen. It lay on the floor, harmless, but to her, it was a sleeping snake ready to strike again if touched. The human watched quietly. His arms rested on his knees, his face calm. He did not want to scare her with sudden movement. His eyes softened each time he looked at her small frame, so thin that every rib showed beneath her skin. She had not eaten like this in many days, maybe many weeks when the bread was gone. Her lips still moved as if hoping for more. Her eyes flicked from the empty plate to the man's face, then back again, he noticed. A faint smile touched his mouth. He reached for the plate, but stopped halfway, remembering her fear. He slowly pulled back his hand, then pointed at the food and at her. Her eyes narrowed. She understood his gesture, but did not trust it. She shook her head, stepping back, her voice cracked. "You will hurt me when I come close." Her breath shook like a broken bell. The man sighed softly. He had to show her. He picked up the fork again, careful, slow. He stabbed a small piece of potato, then raised it to his lips and ate it. Chewing slowly, his eyes stayed on her, patient, steady, showing that the fork carried food. Not pain, but she gasped, her chest tightening. She stepped further back, her thin hands raised as shields. "Stop! Please stop," she cried. Tears filled her glowing eyes. The sight of her tears struck the man deep. He lowered the fork at once and set it down on the plate again. The clink of metal against ceramic echoed sharp in the quiet room. For a long moment, silence stretched. The only sound was her shaking breath. Her body trembled like she was standing in snow. Then her stomach betrayed her once more. Growling louder than before, her eyes darted back to the plate, to the warm potato steaming gently. The smell filled the room, reminding her of hunger too strong to ignore. The man leaned back, his voice calm. "It's for you," he said. "Take it." His words were soft but firm. He pointed again at the food, then lifted his empty hands to show he had no weapon. He even pushed the fork farther away with his fingertips, sliding it so it rested on the very edge of the plate, almost falling again. The alien girl's heart pounded. Her mouth watered, her body screamed for food. But fear chained her feet to the floor. She whispered to herself, "If I touch it, he will strike. They always strike." Her eyes filled with old memories, shouts, punishments. Soldiers laughing as they used sharp tools to cut and scar. But her hunger did not care for memories. Her legs moved forward without her wanting them to. One step, then another. Each step made her flinch, her breath came shallow. Her fingers twisted together nervously. At last she stood before the table. The plate of food was right there. The steam touching her nose, she reached out, her hand trembling as if it weighed 1,000 stones. She grabbed a small piece of potato with her bare fingers and quickly pulled back. Her eyes squeezed shut, bracing for pain, waiting for the strike, but nothing happened. No blow, no punishment, only silence. She opened her eyes slowly. The man was still sitting calmly, watching, not moving. His eyes gentle, his face patient. Her hand shook as she lifted the potato to her mouth. She hesitated, staring at it, then finally bit. Warmth spread across her tongue. Rich and soft, her eyes widened, a small gasp left her lips. It was food, real food. Not rotten scraps, not cold dirt-covered leftovers. For a moment she forgot fear and just chewed. The man watched her closely. His chest grew tight. He could see the way her face softened with each chew, the way her tears mixed with relief. He had fed strays before, animals that crept near his door in winter. But this was no animal. This was a child of another world, broken by cruelty, now tasting kindness. She finished the bite quickly and reached for another. This time she did not close her eyes. Her hand was still shaking, but less. Her hunger grew bolder. Bite after bite, until at last, she leaned over the plate, eating with both hands. The man did not stop her. He let her eat. He knew she needed more than food. She needed trust, and that could only come slowly, bite by bite. When she paused, her lips wet from the food, she looked up at him again, her voice small. Why don't you strike me?" she asked. Her words were heavy, carrying the weight of all the pain she had known. He shook his head. "Because I never will," he said softly. His voice was steady as stone, his eyes serious, her body froze. She searched his face for lies but found none. For the first time, the sharp fear in her chest eased just a little. The fork still lay on the plate, untouched, still feared, but now, because of the first bite, the alien girl felt a spark of hope. She had survived this moment, and maybe, just maybe, the human's fork was not a blade after all. The alien girl sat on the floor now, her knees folded beneath her, crumbs clinging to her lips. She had eaten more than she thought her body could handle. Yet her hands still shook. Not from hunger this time, but from memory. The fork still rested on the table beside the plate, its silver shine catching her eyes again and again. Each time her body stiffened, as if expecting it to leap at her like a predator. The human man noticed he did not touch the fork. He let it sit untouched, knowing it was her enemy. His eyes softened as he watched her fight with fear. He had fed her, yes, but feeding the body was easy. Healing the heart, that was harder. She licked her fingers shyly, ashamed of how quickly she had eaten. Her cheeks flushed a faint color, her voice came weak. It was not poisoned. The words sounded almost like a question. Her people had learned not to trust gifts, not to trust free food. The man shook his head. No poison, only food, he said. His tone calm, steady, like stone against the wind. He wanted his words to become walls she could lean against. Her eyes lowered, she whispered, "Why give it to me? You don't even know me." Her fingers twisted into her torn clothes, clutching them tight. Her body leaned slightly forward as if bracing for a hidden strike. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze gentle. "Because you were hungry," he replied. His words were simple, but they carried weight. They were the kind of words she had never heard before. Kindness had never come without a hidden blade. Her lips parted, a soft gasp slipping out. Tears welled in her silver eyes again. She quickly rubbed them away, embarrassed. Her people had been taught not to cry. Tears only earned more punishment, but here, in this quiet room, with warm food still in her stomach, the tears came freely. The human did not mock her. He did not strike her. He simply sat in silence, letting her cry. That silence was heavy but gentle. It wrapped around her like a blanket. Finally, she looked up again, her voice trembling. "On my world, forks were blades." Her words broke, but she pushed them out. "They bent them sharp, made us kneel. They would press them against our skin, laugh when we screamed." She rolled up her thin sleeve, showing faint scars like lines of fire burned into her arm. The man's jaw tightened. His hands curled slowly into fists on his knees. He had suspected she had seen cruelty, but this was worse than he had imagined. The sight of the scars made his chest ache. His breath grew heavy with anger, not at her, but at the ones who had hurt her. She pulled her sleeve back down quickly, ashamed. "That is why I feared it," she whispered. "That is why I thought you would cut me too." Her voice cracked like glass. The man leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Not here," he said. "Not in my home. No one will cut you here." His eyes locked onto hers with steady fire. Her breath caught. She searched his face, looking for the shadow of a lie, but all she saw was truth. His eyes were hard but not cruel, firm but not cold. They were eyes of someone who had seen pain and decided to stand against it. Slowly, carefully, she reached for the plate again. This time her hands did not shake as much. She picked up another piece of bread, lifted it to her lips and bit. Warmth spread across her tongue once more. Her body relaxed, and for the first time, the food tasted different. It did not taste like stolen scraps. It did not taste like survival. It tasted like kindness. A small sound escaped her throat. Almost a laugh, but broken. She covered her mouth quickly, as if she had done something wrong. But the man only smiled faintly. His heart warmed at the sight. That tiny sound was proof that she could feel something beyond fear. She chewed slowly now, savoring each bite. Her eyes softened, the lines of fear easing just a little. The fork still lay untouched, but it no longer held all her attention. For the first time, the food itself mattered more than the blade beside it. The man leaned back in his chair, his eyes still on her. He knew trust was fragile like glass. One wrong move could shatter it. But tonight something had shifted. The misunderstanding was not fully gone. But the first wall had cracked when she finished. She sat still for a long moment, her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes lowered, her voice soft. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were small, broken but real. The man nodded. "You're welcome," he said, his voice steady. That night, as the shadows grew long and the air grew quiet, the alien girl leaned her head against the wall, her stomach full, her fear a little weaker. She closed her glowing eyes for a moment. For the first time in many years, she felt safe enough to rest. And the man sat across the room, watching, his fork forgotten, knowing that something far greater than food had been shared at that table. The night was quiet. The fire in the small stove crackled softly. Its glow lit the room with gentle warmth. The human sat in his chair, silent, watching the alien girl. She was curled against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. Her silver eyes shone faintly in the dim light. But this time they did not shine with fear alone. For a long while neither spoke. The silence was heavy, yet not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that asked for words, but only when the heart was ready. At last, the girl lifted her head, her lips trembling. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "You want to know why I feared the fork?" The man leaned forward, his voice calm. "Only if you wish to tell me." His eyes carried no demand, only patience. He knew broken souls did not share their stories unless they felt safe enough. She stared at the floor. Her thin fingers picked at the fabric of her torn clothes. "On my world," she began, "they used forks and spoons not for food, but for pain." Her voice shook as memories clawed their way back. They would bend them sharp, press them against our skin, heat them in fire until they glowed red. Then they laughed as they touched us with them. Her hand rose slowly, pulling back the sleeve of her arm. In the firelight, the scars showed clearly now. Lines upon lines, some faded, some deep. Each one a memory carved into her flesh. The human's chest grew tight as he looked, his jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists on his knees. "They told us we were worthless," she continued, her voice breaking. "They said pain would teach us to obey. They made us kneel while they ate in front of us. They used forks to cut our skin while they filled their mouths with food. That is why I thought you would hurt me too. When I saw it in your hand, tears spilled down her cheeks. But this time she did not hide them." Her shoulders shook as sobs escaped. She pressed her face into her knees, her voice muffled. "I thought all who held such things were the same." The man stood slowly. He walked to the table and picked up the fork. For a moment she flinched, her eyes wide. But he did not move toward her. Instead, he turned and tossed it into the fire. The flames hissed and crackled as the metal glowed bright. Then faded into the heat, her eyes widened, shock flooding her face. She stared at the fire, then at him. Her lips parted, but no words came. He returned to his chair, his voice steady. "Here. It will never hurt you," he said. His eyes met hers firmly. "Not while I breathe." Her chest shook as she inhaled sharply. That simple act, the fork burning in flames, shattered something inside her. Not fear, but the chains of memory. For the first time, she believed, maybe this human truly was different. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her voice still weak but braver now. "I was taken young. I do not even remember my parents," she whispered. "They dragged us in chains to work the mines. The air was heavy, the tunnels dark. We coughed until our throats bled. But still they forced us deeper." The human listened, his face grim. Every word carved itself into his mind like a wound. "One day," she said, her eyes distant, "I tried to steal a crust of bread. It was moldy, hard, but I was starving. They caught me. They pressed a heated fork to my arm. They told me I was not even worth the scraps I tried to eat." She pulled her sleeve higher, showing a scar that wrapped like a red rope around her arm. The man's fists trembled. His knuckles went white. He wanted to speak, to curse those who had done this, but he bit his tongue. He knew anger would not help her now. She needed calm, not fire. "They left me weak," she whispered. "One day I escaped in the night. I do not know how I found this world. My body moved without thought. My feet carried me here. And then I saw you with food and with the blade." Her eyes lowered again. "I was sure it would be the end of me." But then her gaze lifted, slowly, carefully. Her silver eyes met his, shimmering with new tears. "And it was not," she whispered, for the first time. "It was not." The man leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Because I am not them," he said. His words cut the air like stone. "You are not worthless, do you understand? You are alive and you deserve to live without fear." Her breath hitched. She hugged her knees tighter. But her tears now were different. They were not only from pain. They carried something else, something new. She lowered her head, her voice so soft it was almost lost in the crackle of the fire. "Then maybe I can trust you." The man nodded once, his eyes burning with silent promise. "You can," he said, and for the first time, the alien girl closed her eyes without fear. The scars of her past still burned inside her. But now, for the first time, she felt the possibility of healing. The fork had melted into the fire, its silver shine now swallowed by orange flames. For the alien girl, it was like watching a ghost die. Something that had haunted her for years was gone in an instant. Yet her heart still pounded, her scars still burned. Memories did not vanish as quickly as metal. She hugged her knees tightly. Her silver eyes glowed faint in the dark as she looked at the man. His face was calm, his shoulders broad and steady. He was not like the soldiers who laughed when she screamed. His silence was different. It was heavy but kind. It told her he would wait as long as it took. The man leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "I promise you this," he said. As long as you are under my roof, no one will harm you. Not with forks, not with blades, not with words, not with chains." His eyes burned with quiet fire. His tone carried weight. The girl trembled, her lips parted. But she did not know what to say. Promises had been made before. Empty words that turned to ash. Yet this time, something in his voice felt different. It was not the sound of a liar. It was the sound of stone. Unshakable. Her breath caught, she whispered. Why do you care?" Her voice was small, fragile. Carrying the fear of the answer, he did not look away. "Because no one should live like you have lived," he replied. "Because I've seen cruelty and I won't let it win here." His jaw tightened. His fists curled slightly, but he kept his voice calm. Her eyes filled with tears, she shook her head. "I am nothing. I was sold like trash. My people said I was cursed. Even they left me behind." Her voice cracked as sobs escaped. "You don't understand. I don't deserve your kindness." The man's chest ached. He stood slowly and crossed the small room. His footsteps were steady. He knelt a few feet away from her, keeping his distance so she would not feel trapped. His voice softened. "You are not nothing," he said. "You are someone who has survived what others could not. You are stronger than they ever knew. That is worth more than anything." Her tears fell freely now. Her hands shook as she pressed them against her chest. The warmth of food still lingered inside her. But his words felt like a different kind of nourishment, something her soul had starved for. The man reached out slowly, stopping just before his hand could touch hers. He did not force, he only offered. "You don't have to believe me yet," he said gently. "But I will show you again and again until you do." She stared at his hand. Her body trembled, her heart screamed to run, but something else whispered to stay slowly, carefully. She lifted her hand and placed it in his. Her fingers were cold, thin, trembling like a frightened bird. He closed his hand around hers gently, not gripping, only holding. His warmth spread into her skin. "Steady, calm," she gasped softly. Her body expected pain, but it never came. Instead, her heartbeat slowed, just a little. For the first time in years, she felt the touch of another without fear. Her voice shook. "If I trust you and you break it, I will die." Her words were not a threat. They were a truth carved by her past. The man nodded slowly, his eyes serious. "Then I will never break it," he said. "This is my promise." The fire crackled. Filling the silence between them, the girl lowered her head, her tears dripping onto the floor, but her hand stayed in his. She did not pull away. That alone was more than words. It was the first step of trust. Fragile but real, minutes passed. She finally leaned back against the wall, still holding his hand lightly. Her breathing grew calmer, her voice soft. "I have never heard words like yours," she whispered. "They used to tell me I was a curse, that no one would ever want me, but now—" She stopped, unable to finish, afraid of the hope rising in her chest. The man's eyes softened. "They lied," he said simply. His voice was strong, cutting through her doubt. "You are not a curse, you are alive. And you deserve to live free." Her lips trembled. She closed her glowing eyes for a moment, letting his words sink into the cracks of her heart. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond fear. She whispered again, so soft it was almost lost in the fire. "Then, maybe I can belong here." The man's chest tightened. He gave her hand the faintest squeeze. "Yes," he said, his voice firm. "You belong." In that moment, the promise was sealed. Not with chains, not with blood, but with simple words and a gentle hand. The fork was gone, the scars still remained. But now something new had begun. Something fragile yet powerful. Trust. Morning light slipped through the small cracks of the window, soft golden beams falling across the wooden floor. The alien girl stirred awake, her silver eyes blinking against the brightness. For a moment she panicked, her body stiff as memories rushed back, the mines, the scars, the forks that burned. But then she felt the warmth of a blanket wrapped around her, something she had not remembered receiving. She looked across the room. The human sat near the stove, his back straight, his hands busy with another simple meal. The sound of the pan sizzled gently, filling the air with a smell far richer than scraps. He noticed her stirring, and his eyes softened. "Good morning," he said calmly. Her lips trembled. She whispered the words back clumsily. "Good morning." They felt strange on her tongue, like a language she had never been allowed to speak before. The man set down the pan and placed food on the table. He did not reach for a fork. He had thrown the last one into the fire. Instead, he used a wooden spoon, smooth and round, harmless in its shape. He pushed the plate gently toward her, saying nothing, only waiting. She sat up slowly, still cautious. Her eyes studied the spoon carefully, and then she let out a breath of relief. It was not sharp, not dangerous. She crawled closer, her thin hands touching the edge of the table. She picked up a piece of bread with her fingers, took a bite, and felt warmth spread through her again. He watched quietly, his patience unshaken. He did not rush her, did not demand trust. He knew it had to grow like fire from a spark, slowly and carefully as she ate. Her voice came softer, braver than before. "You kept your promise," she said. "No blades, no pain." She looked at him, searching his face, and for the first time, her eyes carried not only fear but gratitude. He nodded. "I told you I would," he said. His words steady as stone. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "On my world, promises were broken every day, but you—" Her throat closed and she pressed her hand to her chest. Her silver eyes glistened. "You are different." He leaned forward slightly. "Because you deserve better," he said simply. Her lips quivered. A soft sound escaped her, almost like laughter, but it broke halfway into a sob. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. Embarrassed, but he only smiled faintly, not mocking her, but glad to hear it. That small sound was proof that her heart was beginning to heal. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. When she finished, she leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes, letting the warmth of food and safety sink deep inside her bones. For once, her body was not trembling. For once, her chest was not tight with fear. The human stood and walked to the window, looking out at the wide fields beyond, his voice calm. "This place is not much, but it's safe," he said. "You can stay here as long as you want. No one will touch you. No one will chain you." Her eyes opened wide, her lips parted in shock. "Stay?" she whispered. The word felt like a miracle. She had never been allowed to stay anywhere. Always chased, always punished, always unwanted. He turned back, meeting her gaze. "Yes, stay," he said firmly. "You belong here, not as a prisoner, not as a burden, but as yourself." Tears filled her eyes, spilling freely now. She pressed her hands against her mouth, sobbing softly. Her body shook, but not from fear this time, from release, from the weight finally lifting. She whispered through her tears, "Then maybe I am not nothing." He walked closer, kneeling a short distance away, his voice steady. "You are not nothing. You are someone, and here, you will always be someone." Her silver eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, there was no shadow of doubt, no trembling mistrust. Instead, there was light, faint but real. Her hand reached out slowly, trembling only a little. She touched his arm, a simple touch, but to her it was everything. The man covered her hand with his gently, the same as before, but this time she did not flinch. She let his warmth steady her. She let herself believe in that moment. The fork that once symbolized terror no longer mattered. It was gone, melted away. What remained was trust, fragile but strong. Born in the quiet between two souls who should have never met but did, the alien girl took a deep breath, her voice soft but clear. "I will not fear you anymore," she said. "Not your food, not your hands, not your home." She lowered her head, her tears falling again. But this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of hope. The man gave her hand the faintest squeeze. "Good," he said softly. "Because you never had to." The fire crackled. The morning light grew brighter, and for the first time, the alien girl felt the weight of her chains lift. The fork had once been a blade in her eyes, but now, sitting across from the human who kept his promise, she finally understood. She was safe, she was wanted, she was free.